Oh, looks like David couldn't find anything.
To no avail other than electrical shock. That's what I thought. I thought it was shock hazard. Yeah, I didn't think there was anything in there. I thought it just dealt with shock hazard, and that. And the reason I think that is because when you when you go in and look at Article 130, we go in and you start setting up when you got to determine what the shock hazard is, and then you do what the arc flash hazard is. So that's why we have definitions, and that's the way we design the committee working on the document is to say you got a shock hazard here, so we had a definition for that because we use that term all throughout when we're determining what that shock hazard is. And then that's where you go into your 7E and everything.
Yeah, you can
So,
come on up, Cameron, and hang out. James still has one segment to do, but yeah, you can
yeah.
hang out. We'll start the quiz right after he's done.
All right. Well, that makes me feel good. I was right on what I thought there.
Yeah.
That just goes to show you, I hadn't looked at the document probably in a year and a half, really went through it, to remember everything because I'm doing
True.
the NEC stuff right now and some OSHA things that doesn't deal
I
with
think they
this.
did have a public input or something to add electrical shock instead of just shock. 'Cause it doesn't make sense to just say shock when it's not electrical shock.
Yeah, it that there's a reason it was done that way. Now they might put something for electrical shock, but I know it's not in the 2021. I didn't think it was. I knew damn good well it wasn't electrocution. I thought the only thing that dealt with shock that I was aware of was shock hazard. So,
All right.
and
Well,
David can comment on, I think, in the informational note where it gets in to the time that you're on it and the ventricular fibrillation and all that stuff. And then
sure.
saying ultimately based on these items that could cause death. So, all right. So with
Okay.
that done, they had electrical shock.
Yeah. Oh, that's good information, Warren Brothers. Appreciate that.
All right. So when you get in here this week, we're going to finish up the rest of chapter 3. Thing that I'm finding interesting, there there hasn't been any really major change. The only real major changes is some of the new articles they've added, and most of the articles that they've added that are new deal with everything over 1,000 volts, and like taking from Article 250 and adding Article 270, and then if I'm doing with outside branch circuits and feeders, we got all that now, 265 to 268. Those are some of the major things. I mean, there are a couple of things here and there, but I'm not seeing as much changes as I normally see that we've done in the cycle. Now, that could change when we get to the second revision, but for now, I'm not seeing a ton. All right. Now, this one here is a new one. This is going to deal with 314.2, and what this is going to get into is listing the items here in A through H that shall be listed. All right. And as you go in and you look at this, they talk about extenders, your drain fittings. They tell you here if the drain fitting is larger than a quarter inch, it has to be listed.
True.
Then they get in the 4 boxes, the general requirements that has to be listed. Then you got show windows. They tell you here the receptacle and covers have to be listed as an assembly. So normally supposed there.
Yeah, and that's some really good comments. We're gonna try to get some more discussion going on this more, Worm Brothers, but that's a good point. You got to protect the painters. I know one time we had some fire sprinkler guys. They're getting ready to go swing some pipe up in the ceiling, and they had one of those swing hoists, and they just got live 480 buses that just go across, and that swing hoist goes across, and they're sitting there ready to rest their pipe on them. And I was just like, dude, that's live right there, right? And he's like, what? I was like, yeah, dude, that's freaking live, dude. You can't, I was like, that's live 480. And then they're like, well, we can't do this without that being live. So I went and I got it all shut off for them, you know. But they weren't you know uh, qualified persons to work around that. So
We even take and do in the 70 document where we talk about that, where you're dealing with all the other different things you could have. You could have mechanical in there, pressurized systems. I mean, there's all kinds of things that could be connected to the dealing with electrical to that system. And when you go and do
true,
lockout, tag out, we tell you to look at which one has the most magnitude, and from there is where you start your lockout. So,
true.
whichever one has the most magnitude, you lock and tag out first and work your way down. And then when you bring it back on, then you go from least to the most magnitude.
No,
So,
but I really think, James, that this discussion has really been a good benefit. A lot of people are jumping in. I like it. I think it's good. This
yeah,
is good. There's no shame in people like asking questions and getting out there and going, hey, maybe I'm not qualified on HVAC. Maybe I'm not qualified on, electric cranes and hoists and stuff like that.
sure, you got to know what you're doing,
Mm-hmm.
and you never want to take a chance of getting killed. That's the way I look at it. You know,
True.
it's like I say, when I was coming through the trade, you were sort of considered a wuss if you didn't work on it energized.
Mm-hmm.
That's just a fact,
Yeah.
And today, with all the new electronic equipment and everything, and currents running back through neutrals and all of this, and causing it to be a current carrying conductor, and uh, you you really need to know what you're working on and understand, because you may think something's de-energized and you're sharing a neutral that's become current carrying, and all of a sudden that neutral's not de-energized and you get lit up. So, you know, you have to learn these things. But
Yeah. I agree, Warren Brothers.
now here's a good one. D. I think they got the language wrong here, but it says outlet boxes for ceiling suspended paddle fans. Okay, well I thought the ceiling suspended paddle fan was the utilization equipment. Apparently not. It's the box that's the outlet, and they're telling you that the outlet box that's being used there has to be listed for the support, and that's going to tie into 314.27, which is what I've been saying. When you get into this, it literally says the box up there is the outlet. And then they talk about reduced dimension boxes and conduit bodies. They tell you they have to be listed and marked with allowable fill. Then they
Mm-hmm.
get in. I'm not going to go through all these, but you've got a list here now that they're talking about that have to be listed. And then this is just the substantiation that was in the purview of the 2023 NEC Style Manual, Section 2.21, putting it as a listing requirement here. And then they tell you that co-making panel A firmly believes the term listed is clearly understood and needs to remain in the applicable section in context with its use. Only general listing requirements of a product should be in this section.
True.
Okay, so they're not saying every box has to be listed. This is what they're telling you. These are certain boxes that have to be listed. All right. Now here's another one. You'll like this next one.
Okay.
This is where we get into reconditioned equipment, and it says reconditioned outlet device puller, junction boxes, conduit fittings, and handhole enclosures shall not be permitted. Okay, so
Oh, it looks like Daniel freaking blew a hole in his lineman's. Oh man. Oh
oh,
dude. Man,
then
I hate when people tie stuff in. You're working on it. That's not
yeah,
even cool, brother. Not even
that's why I
cool.
always check it to make sure, even after I
Yeah.
de-energize it, it is. But here's a good one: you can't recondition an outlet. Okay, and this is one of the things I've been arguing over this outlet discussion, and it ties back into what I was saying. If you look at 314.16, the number of conductors in an outlet, a device, or junction box, it says the same thing. And even when I get into mounting, it talks about it, an outlet box. Okay,
Right.
so I find all that very interesting that Article 314, it's, in my opinion, it specifically states that the outlet is a box. It's not a point.
Oh,
Okay.
welcome in, Cameron. Cameron showed up. Awesome.
What's
Thanks for
good?
joining. James is almost done. He's just got a few more. We're just
Yeah,
doing a
just give me
code
a
change
little
for
bit.
2026.
And then you have another change here in 320.23 in accessible attics. And that what they did, they made it into a list format. The real change took place in A1, accessible by permanent means. Okay, and then they gave the heading not accessible by permanent means.
Right.
And it's the last portion of the sentence where it gets into, and it says where the space is accessible by permanent installed stairs or ladders. Okay, so what this is going to do, it's
Rhino's up in the house. What's up, Rising
Yeah,
Rhino?
Rhino.
Awesome.
What's going on, everybody?
Sweet. We're almost there, brother.
we're getting there.
We're almost done.
And what it tells you is that the cables are going to be required to be protected by guard strips if it's within 7 foot of the floor or horizontal surface of the entire attic or roof space.
Yeah, I agree with that too. And
Yeah.
David has a good comment here. Speaking of 314 with the fire stopping on those boxes, they actually give you listing requirements. I've seen this before, David, where you could put the putty pack on the outside or the inside, but they don't give you an outlet fill requirement for that. So that is interesting, David. That is an interesting comment. We'll have to
I
check
think
out
I
that.
would look at the manufacturer's instructions on that.
Oh,
I would go with that.
dude, look who it is. Oh,
Hello.
Adam's in the house. Awesome.
Yo, Adam.
Good talk. Rising
Thank-
Rhino, Cameron, King James, and
Yeah.
Mr. Batista.
Dude, I'm telling you, this quiz is easy, you guys. It's slam dunk. Total easy quiz. So everyone's going to get the right answer. We're just having fun hanging out. And James is almost done with his presentation for
Yeah.
the topic this week.
Give me a little bit more and I'll be done.
Yep.
All right. Now, in 342.3, what they're telling you is that your intermediate metal conduit, it cannot be reconditioned. Now, you're going to go through, I didn't do every one of these, but you're going to see rigid metal conduit, liquid type, PVC, you're going to see EMT. You're going to see this requirement pretty much all the way through, all
Right.
these different wiring methods. Okay? Then they came in and they did, you're going to see a new section that's going to take place, and you're going to see this in a few different ones. You'll see it in rigid metal conduit. There was another one, I forgot which one, but this is where they get into paired lock nuts. Okay.
Okay.
And what they're doing is they're basically telling you how to use these paired lock nuts to maintain electrical and mechanical continuity. And they're telling you that they'll be used for enclosure openings that is not a threaded hub, and that these lock nuts shall be installed with a minimum of one lock nut on each side of the penetrated enclosure wall. And then they also tell you that other fittings that are listed for the purpose shall be permitted to serve as the lock nut installed inside the enclosure. So that tells me there that you're going to have to look at the manufacturer's instructions to know which one of these other fittings aren't permitted to be installed inside that enclosure.
Yeah, and that's actually a good one, I think, because what we found out in the field, out in gas and oil, is you have to use a Myers hub.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, like, you don't always have to use a Myers hub.
That's correct. And this is sort of helping clarifying this when you're using these types of wiring methods. Okay. Now, this is, there's going to be some others that are going to deal with this also. Okay. And what this is going to get into is PVC. There's the other one, I forget, thermosetting something.
Yeah.
R,
That's that stuff that they
RPPC or
shoot.
something.
We call it fiber duct. That's that
Yeah.
stuff they shoot across roadways, like with their unidirectional boring.
Well, what this is they tell you if it's larger than number 6, you can't be used, but there's an exception now.
True.
Okay, and they tell you because they're manufacturing these conduits a lot now, and they tell you here that listed conduit exceeding 6 inch here shall be permitted where all the following conditions are met. It says it is used where no part of the conduit is installed above ground and backfilled in accordance with 300.5F. It is located where it does not pass through a class 1 or zone 0, 1 or 2 hazardous classified location, and the percent of cross-section area conduit for conductors and cables does not exceed the percentages shown in Chapter 9, Table 1. Okay, so they're giving some permission here where you're using PVC conduit where it's larger number 6, but the main thing is this conduit is meant in ground. It cannot be above ground.
True.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's a
So,
good point.
yeah, so that gets me through my presentation. Now, believe it or not,